I told my wife her crying was manipulative. Now she won't show any emotion around me. My wife cries at everything. Sad commercials, books, even telling happy stories. It embarrasses me when she tears up over nothing in front of friends. 3 months ago, I finally snapped. She was telling a story to our friends, exaggerating details like always. I called her out for lying. She said it was comedic effect. Everyone embellishes for humor. After everyone left, I brought it up again. When I raised my voice, she started crying. "You're being manipulative," I told her. "Every time I critique you, you cry to make me stop. Remember when I said your cooking was disgusting? You cried instead of listening. I'm sick of your manipulative tears." I threatened to hit her if she didn't stop. Heat of the moment. My mom did the same to my dad, manipulated him with tears. When I raised my hand to gesture, she flinched. I assured her it was an empty threat. She locked herself in our room for hours, then apologized for being manipulative. Said it wouldn't happen again. Problem solved, right? Wrong. She's become a ghost. She won't watch movies with sad parts. Doesn't tell stories anymore. Friends exclude me now because she's not fun when you're there. Stopped reading in the living room, watching emotional TV shows. Won't even talk to her mom if I'm in the room. I haven't seen her cry once in 3 months. Someone who cried daily. "I don't want to manipulate you anymore," she said when I brought it up. "Your everyday crying wasn't manipulative, so it's only manipulative when you're mad at me?" She's right. I only called it manipulative when her emotions inconvenienced me, when her crying made me feel guilty. Now I have what I wanted. A wife who never cries around me, who locks away all emotions, who won't laugh at movies because showing feeling might be manipulative. Our bedroom is dead. She won't be vulnerable. When I hug her, she's stiff. One-word responses. She's there, but not there. My brother visited and pulled me aside. "What happened to Sarah? She's like a different person, like she's afraid of you." She's not afraid of me. She's afraid of being herself around me. Because I told her genuine emotions were manipulation. Because I threatened violence. Because I made her natural feelings shameful. The worst part? This is exactly how Dad described Mom in their divorce papers. Emotionally absent, disconnected, living with a ghost. Mom used to be expressive until years of him calling her dramatic killed that part. I've become my father. Turned my wife into my mother. She's been looking at apartments online. Her sister called yesterday. I heard her whisper, "I can't do this much longer." This morning, I tried again. "Sarah, please. I was wrong. Your emotions weren't manipulative." She looked at me with empty eyes. "This is who you wanted me to be." The doorbell rang. A woman stood there with a clipboard. "Mrs. Patrickson? I'm here for the intake evaluation." "What intake?" I asked. "For the Women's Emotional Trauma Recovery Program, the residential treatment." Sarah turned to me, expressionless. "I'm checking myself in for 2 weeks." "Sarah, you don't need—" "The facility doesn't allow contact with triggering individuals during treatment," the woman said, looking at me. Sarah had a bag already packed by the door. "You threatened to hit me for crying," Sarah said flatly. I flinched because my body remembered my father hitting my mother for the same thing, but I never told you that. Too emotional. My blood went cold. "Your father hit. Goodbye, Patrick." She walked out with the counselor. Through the window, I watched her get in the car. As they pulled away, I saw something that destroyed me. She was sobbing, crying harder than I'd ever seen. 3 months of tears pouring out the second she was away from me. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "This is Dr. Walton from the recovery program. Your wife's intake revealed severe emotional suppression trauma. We'll be recommending extended treatment." Another text immediately after. "Patrick, this is Sarah's sister. I'm at the facility with her. She wanted me to tell you something but couldn't say it herself." "What?" "She's been having headaches for months. Severe ones. Finally got tested last week without telling you because she didn't want to manipulate you with bad news." My hands shook. The results came yesterday. Brain tumor. Benign but pressing on her emotional regulation center. The doctor said the crying wasn't just personality. It was neurological. The tumor's been affecting her emotional responses for years. I couldn't breathe. She starts surgery prep next week. The treatment center is actually a medical facility. She didn't want you to feel guilty, so she let you think it was for trauma. Another text. The doctor said stress makes it grow faster. These 3 months of suppressing her emotions, the tumor doubled in size. I called immediately. Straight to voicemail. Called Sarah's sister. No answer. Drove to the facility. They wouldn't let me in. "Triggering individuals aren't allowed," they said. I'm sitting in my car now, realizing I might have killed my wife by demanding she stop being human. I sit in my car outside the facility for 2 hours, calling Sarah's phone over and over until it goes straight to voicemail. Every ring feels like it's cutting deeper into my chest. My hands shake as I press redial again and again, knowing she won't answer but unable to stop myself. The security guard taps on my window around 8 p.m., his flashlight beam making me squint. He tells me I need to leave the property or they'll call the police. I start the car and pull away, watching the building disappear in my rearview mirror. The drive home is a blur. I nearly run a red light because my eyes are too blurred to see the colors properly. My hands grip the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turn white, and I have to remind myself to breathe at every stoplight. The house feels wrong without Sarah's presence, like all the air has been sucked out. I walk through the front door, and the silence hits me like a wall. I find myself moving through rooms looking for signs of her, my feet carrying me to all her usual spots. Her books are gone from the living room shelves, leaving empty spaces that look like missing teeth. I open the kitchen cabinet, and her favorite coffee mug is missing, the one with the little flowers she bought at that craft fair 2 years ago. The blanket she always used while reading is nowhere to be found. I check the couch, the armchair, even the hall closet. Gone. Every small thing she loved has been carefully removed, like she was planning this exit for weeks. The house looks the same but feels empty in a way that makes my skin crawl. I try calling Kiara back, but she doesn't answer, so I text her begging for information about Sarah's condition. My fingers fumble on the keyboard, and I have to retype the message 3 times. I ask if Sarah is okay, if the tumor is really that serious, if she'll let me visit. I press send and stare at the screen, watching the little dots that show someone is typing. They appear, then disappear, then appear again. An hour passes before her response finally comes through. 5 words. She's getting the help you prevented. The message hits like a punch to the gut because I know it's true. I type out a dozen responses and delete them all. What can I possibly say to that? That night I can't sleep, so I start going through my phone looking at old photos of Sarah. I scroll back through months of pictures, my thumb moving automatically across the screen. There are hundreds from before 3 months ago showing her laughing, crying at movies, animated while telling stories at dinner parties. In one photo, she's wiping tears from her eyes after we watched some sad movie, smiling even as she cries. In another, she's mid-story, hands gesturing wildly, face full of expression. Then the photos stop completely. I scroll forward, and there's nothing but screenshots and random pictures of receipts I needed for work. It's like I documented the exact moment I killed her spirit, the day I called her manipulative and made her afraid to be herself around me. I call in sick to work the next morning because I can't imagine sitting through meetings pretending everything is normal. My boss sounds annoyed when I tell him I need a personal day. He doesn't push, probably assuming it's just another one of my usual excuses for being unreliable. I spend the day on the couch staring at my phone, waiting for updates that don't come. Every buzz makes me jump, hoping it's news about Sarah, but it's just work emails and spam calls. The hours drag by. I try to eat something around noon, but the food tastes like cardboard. I give up after 3 bites and go back to the couch. Nathan shows up unannounced around 2 p.m. and lets himself in with the spare key I gave him years ago. I hear the door open and his footsteps in the hallway before I see him. He looks at me with a mixture of pity and disgust that makes me want to crawl out of my skin. The way his eyes scan over me, taking in my unwashed hair and wrinkled clothes, makes me feel like something scraped off a shoe. He doesn't hug me or ask how I'm doing, just stands there in the doorway looking at me like I'm a stranger. We sit in uncomfortable silence for a few minutes before Nathan finally speaks. His voice is flat and cold in a way I've never heard before. He tells me that Dad called him last night asking why I wasn't answering his calls. I didn't even realize Dad had been trying to reach me. Nathan says he told Dad I'm dealing with the consequences of becoming exactly like him. The words hang in the air between us, and I can't argue because they're true. I've become the man I swore I'd never be, the man who made my mother into a ghost. Nathan tells me that Kayla has been talking to Kiara, who says Sarah has been planning this for weeks. The tumor diagnosis came 10 days ago, but Sarah kept it from me on purpose. She knew I'd make it about my guilt instead of her health, so she told her sister and started planning her exit without saying a word to me. The calculation in her silence destroys me more than anything else could. She was so certain I'd fail her that she didn't even give me a chance. And the worst part is, she was right to do it. I would have made it all about me, about my feelings, about how guilty I felt, just like I'm doing right now. After Nathan leaves, I find myself in our bedroom staring at Sarah's side of the closet. The door hangs open, and I can see the empty hangers where her everyday clothes used to be. Most of her casual stuff is gone, the jeans and sweaters and comfortable shirts she wore around the house. But her nice dresses are still hanging there like ghosts, the ones she wore to weddings and dinners and special occasions. I reach out and touch the fabric of her blue dress, the one she wore to Nathan and Kayla's anniversary party. I realize she only took what she needed to survive without me, leaving behind everything connected to our life together. The dresses are memories she doesn't want anymore. I try to distract myself with television, but every commercial with couples being happy together feels like a personal attack. A jewelry ad shows a man surprising his wife with a gift, and she cries happy tears while hugging him. I turn it off and sit in silence, finally understanding what Sarah meant about not being able to watch anything with emotional content. This is what I did to her, except I was her safe space that became a minefield. Every room in this house became a place where she had to monitor herself, control herself, make herself smaller. I turned our home into a prison where her natural feelings were crimes. The next morning I dragged myself to work even though I barely slept. My eyes burn from staring at my phone all night waiting for updates that never came. I sit through the morning meeting, but I don't hear a single word anyone says. My mind keeps replaying the image of Sarah sobbing in that car, 3 months of suppressed tears flooding out the second she was away from me. My boss asks me a direct question about the quarterly reports, and I just stare at him blankly until someone else jumps in to answer. After the meeting, my coworker Jennifer stops by my desk and asks if everything is okay. Something about the genuine concern in her voice makes me snap. I tell her to mind her own business in a tone that's way harsher than necessary. She backs away looking hurt, and I immediately feel like garbage. I catch up with her in the hallway and apologize, explaining that I'm dealing with some personal stuff. She accepts the apology, but I can see the wariness in her eyes now. I'm becoming exactly what I accused Sarah of being, volatile and unpredictable, lashing out when people show concern. The comparison makes me sick. During lunch, I sit in my car instead of going to the cafeteria because I can't handle being around people. My phone rings from an unknown number, and I answer it desperately, hoping it's news about Sarah. A woman's voice introduces herself as Dr. McKinney from the facility. My heart starts racing as she explains that Sarah has given permission for limited contact. She tells me that Sarah is stable and engaging with treatment, her voice carefully neutral and professional. Then she adds that Sarah has specifically asked that I not attempt to visit or contact her directly. The words hit like a physical blow, even though I should have expected them. I ask how long Sarah will be there, and Dr. McKinney pauses before answering. She explains that Sarah will be in residential treatment for at least 3 weeks, possibly longer depending on her progress. They're treating both the emotional trauma and preparing her for the medical procedure. Sarah needs an environment free from triggers to build coping skills for surgery recovery. I grip my phone so hard my knuckles turn white. 3 weeks minimum without knowing if my wife is okay, without being able to apologize or explain or do anything to fix what I've broken. I ask Dr. McKinney if I can at least send Sarah a letter. There's a long pause on the other end of the line, and I can practically hear her choosing her words carefully. She tells me she can't stop me from writing one, but she can't promise that Sarah will read it, or that her treatment team will recommend delivering it. Right now, Sarah's focus needs to be on her own healing, not on managing my feelings. The way she says it makes it clear that I've been making everything about my feelings for a long time. I thank her and hang up, then sit in my car staring at nothing. The idea that even a letter from me might be considered harmful to Sarah's recovery destroys something inside me. I've become so toxic to her that my words themselves are dangerous. That afternoon, I'm back at my desk pretending to work when my phone rings again. This time, it's Kiara calling me directly for the first time since Sarah left. Her voice when I answer is cold and controlled in a way I've never heard from her before. She tells me she needs me to understand something, that Sarah has been protecting me from the truth about how bad things got. But Kiara is done watching her sister sacrifice herself for my comfort. I grip the edge of my desk and tell her I'm listening. She explains that Sarah has been having severe headaches for 5 months, long before I started calling her manipulative. Sarah thought they were stress headaches from work and didn't connect them to the crying because the crying was just who she's always been. The timeline makes me physically ill because it means I was attacking her for a medical symptom. I was punishing her for something that was literally caused by a brain tumor pressing on her emotional regulation center. Kiara's voice gets harder as she continues. She tells me the neurologist said the tumor has probably been growing for 2 to 3 years. It's been affecting Sarah's emotional regulation the whole time I've known her. The woman I fell in love with, the one who cried at everything, that was partially a brain tumor, and I punished her for it. I called her manipulative and dramatic and told her to stop being so sensitive when her brain was literally malfunctioning. Kiara says all this in a flat, factual tone that somehow makes it worse than if she was yelling. When she's done, she hangs up without saying goodbye. I sit at my desk unable to move, unable to think, unable to do anything but absorb the weight of what I've done. After work, I drive home in a daze and immediately start searching through the house. I'm looking for anything Sarah might have left behind that could help me understand what was happening while I was too busy being cruel to notice. I go through the bathroom cabinets, the kitchen drawers, anywhere she might have kept personal items. In the back of her nightstand drawer, hidden under some old magazines, I find a small notebook I've never seen before. My hands shake as I pick it up and open to the first page. The entries are dated starting 6 months ago, written in Sarah's neat handwriting. The first few entries are about headaches and her worry that something might be wrong. One entry reads that I get annoyed when she complains about being tired. She writes that she doesn't want to burden me with medical appointments that might be nothing. Reading those words makes me feel physically sick. She was already minimizing her own health concerns to manage my reactions. She was already making herself smaller to avoid my irritation. I keep reading, and the entries get worse. She documents every headache, every moment of dizziness, every time she felt something was off. But mixed in with the medical concerns are observations about our relationship. She writes about how I've been getting more critical lately, how I seem annoyed by her emotions. One entry from 4 months ago says she's starting to wonder if maybe I'm right about her being too sensitive. Maybe she does cry too much. Maybe she is being dramatic. Watching her doubt herself because of my words is devastating. I did this to her. I made her question her own reality while she was dealing with a growing brain tumor. Further into the notebook, the entries shift to documenting specific incidents between us. She writes about the night I called her manipulative for the first time. She describes how she cried in the bedroom for hours trying to figure out if I was right. The entry says she can't tell anymore if her feelings are real or if she's being dramatic, like I say. She writes that she loves me and wants to be a better wife, but she doesn't know how to stop feeling things so intensely. Reading this breaks something fundamental inside me. She was trying so hard to be what I wanted while her brain was literally malfunctioning, and I just kept making everything worse. I flip to the next page and see an entry from 2 months ago that makes my blood run cold. The entry shows her handwriting getting shaky toward the end, like she was crying while writing it. I flip back through earlier pages and see the progression of her fear, watching it grow from confusion to terror over the course of weeks. She writes about waking up at night wondering if I would actually hit her someday, about practicing staying calm when I got angry, about teaching herself to shut down her emotions before I could attack them. Every word is proof of what I did to her. I close the notebook and sit on the edge of the bed, holding it against my chest. The weight of it feels like it should be heavier somehow, like something containing this much damage should physically crush me. The last entry before she left is dated 4 days ago. She writes about the tumor diagnosis and her decision to check into treatment without telling me the full truth. I know Patrick will make this about his guilt instead of my health, she wrote. He'll apologize and cry and promise to change, but it won't be about me needing support through surgery. It'll be about him needing forgiveness. I can't carry his feelings anymore while my brain is literally breaking. She was right about everything. If she had told me about the tumor, I would have made it about my guilt, about how I caused it to grow, about how I needed her to forgive me, so I could feel better. I wouldn't have focused on what she needed. I would have centered myself in her medical crisis, just like I centered myself in every emotional moment of our marriage. I spend hours reading through every page, absorbing each documented moment of my cruelty. She wrote about the night I called her cooking disgusting and she cried. I spent 3 hours making his favorite meal, the entry says. He took 1 bite and said it was disgusting. When I got upset, he said I was being dramatic and couldn't take criticism. I threw the whole dinner away and ordered pizza. He didn't understand why I was quiet the rest of the night. I remember that evening. I remember thinking she was overreacting to honest feedback. I remember feeling annoyed that she was sulking instead of just accepting my opinion. I never considered that I had destroyed something she made with love, that my words were deliberately cruel, that her tears were a normal response to being treated with contempt. Another entry describes a time we were with friends, and she started crying while telling a story about her grandmother. Patrick rolled his eyes so hard I thought they'd fall out of his head, she wrote. Later, he said I was embarrassing him by being so emotional in public. He said normal people don't cry about things that happened years ago. I apologized and promised to try harder to control myself. But I miss my grandmother. Is it really wrong to cry about missing someone you loved? I remember that night too. I remember being embarrassed, thinking she was being theatrical for attention. I never thought about how she might genuinely be grieving, how the story triggered real loss, how my contempt for her emotions was teaching her that grief was shameful. My phone rings and Nathan's name appears on the screen. I answer and my voice comes out rough. I found her notebook, I say before he can speak. She documented everything. Every time I hurt her, every moment I made her doubt herself, everything. Nathan is quiet for a moment. Are you okay? He asks, and I almost laugh because the question is absurd. No, I say. I'm not okay. I'm reading about how I systematically destroyed my wife's sense of self over months while she had a brain tumor. I'm reading about how she was so afraid of me that she compared me to her abusive father. I'm reading about how she knew I would make her cancer diagnosis about my guilt instead of her health. I'm not fucking okay. Nathan sighs and I hear him moving around, probably finding somewhere private to talk. I'm glad you found it, he says finally. Not because it feels good to read, but because you need to understand what you did. You need to see it through her eyes instead of making excuses in your own head. He's right, but it doesn't make it easier. She was trying to protect me even while I was destroying her, I say. She knew about the tumor and still worried about making me feel guilty. What kind of person does that make me that she was more afraid of my reaction than brain surgery? That's what abuse does, Nathan says, and hearing him use that word about me feels like being punched. It makes the victim prioritize the abuser's feelings over their own safety. Dad did the same thing to Mom for 20 years before she finally left. You need to understand that Sarah protecting you was a trauma response, not love. The words hit hard because they reframe everything I thought I understood about our marriage. I thought Sarah's consideration of my feelings meant she loved me. I thought her efforts to keep me calm meant she cared about our relationship. But Nathan is saying those things were survival tactics, ways she learned to manage a dangerous situation, responses born from fear rather than affection. Nathan tells me he and Kayla have been talking about our family history since Sarah left. Kayla pointed out that I have some of Dad's patterns too, he admits. Not as bad as yours, but they're there. I dismiss her concerns sometimes, make decisions without asking her input, expect her to manage my moods. We're both going to therapy to break the cycle before we have kids. The idea that this is generational, that we're both carrying forward Dad's damage in different ways, makes me feel sick. I always thought I was nothing like our father because I never yelled or threw things. I never realized that emotional abuse could be quiet, that control could look like concern, that manipulation could hide behind claims of honesty. I asked Nathan what Mom was like before Dad broke her down. There's a long pause before he answers. I barely remember it because I was so young, he says. But I found old home videos once when I was helping them move. Mom used to be expressive and emotional like Sarah. She laughed differently, cried at happy things, told animated stories with her whole body. Then gradually in the videos, she just gets quieter and quieter until she's basically a ghost. By the time I was 10, she was the version you know now. Flat, careful, always monitoring Dad's mood and adjusting herself to keep him comfortable. The parallel to Sarah is so exact it makes me nauseous. I created the same transformation in 3 months that took my father years to accomplish. I was more efficient at destroying someone than he was. Nathan and I talk for another hour about family patterns and trauma responses and the ways abuse gets passed down through generations. When we finally hang up, I feel hollowed out. Like everything I thought I knew about myself has been scraped away, leaving only the ugly truth underneath. I'm my father's son in the worst possible way. The next morning, I force myself to go to work, even though I barely slept. My boss notices immediately that something is wrong, but doesn't comment until I snap at a coworker during the morning meeting. He pulls me aside after everyone leaves the conference room. "What's going on with you?" he asks. "Your performance has been declining for months, and now you're creating a hostile environment for the team. Get your life together before you lose your job, too." The threat is clear and probably deserved. I've been useless at work for weeks, distracted and irritable, and unable to focus on anything except Sarah. I leave the office early and drive to my parents' house without calling first. I need to confront Dad about what Nathan told me, need to see for myself if Mom really is the ghost Nathan described. Dad answers the door looking surprised, but invites me in. Mom is in the kitchen making dinner, and I watch her move through the space with mechanical efficiency. She checks Dad's expression before speaking, adjusts her plans based on his subtle mood cues, exists in the room without taking up any emotional space. It's exactly how Sarah moved through our house during those final 3 months. How long has she been like this? I ask Dad, and he looks genuinely confused by the question. "Like what?" he says. "Your mother has always been steady and reliable. That's who she is." But I've seen the home videos Nathan mentioned. I know Mom used to be different, used to laugh and cry and take up space in the world. I watch her now and see Sarah's future. See what happens when someone spends decades managing an abuser's emotions at the expense of their own humanity. I watch Dad's face and see nothing but blank confusion, like I'm speaking a different language. He shakes his head slowly and sets down his coffee cup on the kitchen counter. "Your mother has always been steady and reliable," he says, his voice calm and matter-of-fact. "That's who she is. She's the person I can count on to keep things running smoothly." I look at Mom again, still moving through her dinner prep with mechanical precision, and realize the truth is worse than I thought. Dad genuinely doesn't remember who she used to be. Or maybe he's convinced himself this hollow version was always her, that the expressive woman from Nathan's old videos never existed. The erasure is so complete he can't even see what he destroyed. "Dad, you need to hear this," I say, my voice getting louder. "You did to Mom exactly what I did to Sarah. You broke her down until she stopped being herself. You called her dramatic until she stopped showing any emotion at all." Dad's expression hardens and he stands up straighter, crossing his arms over his chest. "I never hit her," he says sharply, like that single fact erases everything else. "I provided for this family. I kept a roof over your heads and food on the table. I kept things stable and calm. If your mother learned to be less dramatic over the years, that's called growing up and being mature." He picks up his newspaper from the counter and snaps it open, clearly done with this conversation. Mom keeps chopping vegetables, her knife hitting the cutting board in steady, emotionless rhythm. "You killed who she was," I say, and my voice shakes so badly I can barely get the words out. "Just like I killed who Sarah was. We're the same. We're both abusers who destroyed the women we married." Dad's face goes red, and he slams the newspaper down on the counter hard enough to make Mom flinch. "Get out of my house if you're going to be disrespectful," he says, his voice cold and final. "I don't need to listen to this garbage from my own son." I look at Mom, desperately hoping she'll say something, anything, to acknowledge what we're talking about. She just keeps preparing dinner like this confrontation isn't happening 5 feet away from her, like she's trained herself to disappear whenever conflict starts. Her silence is more damning than anything Dad could say, because it proves my point. I grab my keys and leave without another word. The drive home takes forever because I can barely see through the tears blurring my vision. I pull over twice because I'm shaking too hard to drive safely. When I finally get home, I sit in my driveway for 20 minutes before I can force myself to go inside. The house is completely dark and silent, and walking through the door feels like entering a tomb. I understand now that my father will never acknowledge what he did to Mom. He'll go to his grave believing he was a good husband who provided stability. never recognizing that he systematically destroyed another human being's ability to be themselves. The difference between us is, I can't hide from what I did anymore. Sarah's notebook sits on my kitchen table where I left it this morning, every page a documented record of my abuse. Kiara's texts are saved in my phone, laying out the medical facts I can't deny. The tumor, the suppression, the doubling in size. I'm facing consequences Dad never had to face because Sarah left before I could complete the erasure. I try to write Sarah a letter that night, but every attempt sounds wrong. I sit at the kitchen table with a notebook and pen, staring at blank pages until my eyes hurt. I'm sorry, feels hollow and meaningless after what I did. I understand now, feels presumptuous, like I'm claiming insight I haven't earned. Please forgive me, feels like making it about my need for absolution instead of her pain. I write 7 different drafts and throw them all away, crumpling each one and tossing it across the room until there's paper scattered everywhere. Nothing I write captures the truth without sounding manipulative. Nothing acknowledges the harm without centering my guilt. I give up around midnight and go to bed, but I don't sleep. I just lie there staring at the ceiling, thinking about Sarah in that facility preparing for brain surgery while I sit here composing useless letters. My phone buzzes on the nightstand the next morning while I'm still in bed. It's a text from Kiara, and my heart stops when I see Sarah's name. Sarah's surgery has been scheduled for 2 weeks from now, the message says. She wanted you to know in case something goes wrong, but she doesn't want you at the hospital. Felix and I will be there with her. I read the message 5 times, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. The casual mention of something going wrong sends me into a complete panic spiral. I start typing responses but delete them all. What can I possibly say? That I'm glad she told me? That I wish I could be there? Every response sounds selfish. I finally just text back, "Thank you for letting me know," and then spend the next hour curled up on my bathroom floor trying to breathe normally. I spend the entire day researching brain tumor surgery on my laptop, clicking through medical websites and academic papers until my eyes burn. The surgery involves removing a tumor pressing on her emotional regulation center, which controls how she processes and expresses feelings. I read about risks and complications, about the careful way surgeons have to navigate brain tissue, about recovery timelines that stretch for months. The worst part is learning there's a real possibility she could come out different from she went in. The surgery might fix the physical problem but create new ones. She might never cry again if they damage the wrong area. She might cry uncontrollably if they can't remove it all. She might lose emotional capacity entirely and become even more of a ghost than I already made her. I read one article about a woman who came out of similar surgery, unable to feel love or connection anymore, and I have to close my laptop before I throw up. I call the facility that afternoon and ask to speak with Dr. McKinney. The receptionist puts me on hold for 10 minutes before Dr. McKinney picks up. "I need to speak to Sarah before the surgery," I say, the words tumbling out desperately. "I need her to know I understand. I need her to know it wasn't her fault." Dr. McKinney listens quietly while I ramble, not interrupting until I finally run out of words. "What you need is not the priority here," she says, her voice sympathetic but completely firm. "Sarah is preparing for major brain surgery. She needs to focus on that, not on managing your guilt or processing your feelings. Her mental and emotional energy needs to be directed toward her own healing and preparation." Dr. McKinney does agree to pass along a message if I keep it brief and focused on Sarah rather than myself. I take a deep breath and try to organize my thoughts into something useful. "Tell her I found the notebook," I say slowly. "Tell her I understand about her father now, about why she flinched. Tell her I'm sorry for every time I made her doubt herself or question her own feelings. Tell her none of this was her fault." Dr. McKinney is quiet for a moment before responding. "I'll share that with her treatment team," she says carefully. "Whether they pass it along to Sarah depends on what's best for her treatment and preparation. They'll make that decision based on her current emotional state and needs." She hangs up before I can say anything else. 2 days crawl by with no word from anyone. I go to work but accomplish nothing, staring at my computer screen while my coworkers give me strange looks. I come home and sit in the dark, checking my phone every few minutes for updates that don't come. On the 3rd morning, my phone rings with an unknown number. "This is Autumn Parks," a woman's voice says when I answer. Her voice is tight with controlled anger that makes every word sound clipped and precise. "Kiara told me what you did to my daughter. I need you to understand something about Sarah's childhood that she probably never told you, because you made it unsafe for her to share anything real. Sarah's father broke her mother's jaw at a kindergarten graduation because Autumn cried happy tears watching their daughter perform. Autumn tells me this in the same flat voice she's used for the entire call, each word landing like a physical blow. She explains how Sarah learned before she could tie her shoes that showing feelings meant danger, that her tears could trigger violence, that being emotional put her mother at risk. When Sarah finally felt safe enough with me to cry freely, to let herself feel things without fear, I punished her exactly like her father punished Autumn. The parallel makes me want to throw up, but Autumn isn't done. She tells me Sarah spent her childhood being the strong one, while Autumn recovered from broken bones and learned how to leave an abuser. Sarah took care of Kiara, made sure everyone ate, pretended everything was fine at the school while her home life crumbled. When Sarah met me and started crying at commercials and books and happy stories, Autumn thought it meant her daughter finally felt safe enough to heal from all those years of forced strength. She was wrong. I took that healing and crushed it, made Sarah back into the scared child who had to monitor every feeling to stay safe. Autumn's voice gets harder as she continues. She left Sarah's father when Sarah was 12. After the third time, he put her in the hospital. Sarah saw everything, watched her mother get hurt over and over, saw Autumn make excuses and go back, witnessed the whole cycle of abuse up close. When Sarah flinched away from my raised hand, she wasn't just reacting to me. She was remembering her father hitting her mother, remembering every time violence followed emotion, remembering the fear that shaped her entire childhood. I made her into that terrified child again after she'd spent years learning to feel safe. The weight of understanding crushes me because Sarah's emotional openness wasn't just her personality. It was her healing, her proof that she'd escaped her past, her way of being the person she couldn't be as a kid. And I destroyed it by repeating her father's patterns in a different form. Autumn's voice cuts through my spiral of guilt. She tells me I'm not welcome at the hospital during Sarah's surgery. I'm not welcome at her recovery. If Sarah decides she wants contact with me someday, that will be her choice and hers alone. Right now, I need to stay away from her daughter. She hangs up before I can respond, before I can apologize or explain or beg for another chance. The silence after the call ends feels like a physical presence in the car. I sit there holding my dead phone, understanding that Sarah's family has closed ranks around her, and I'm on the outside where I belong. I drive home on autopilot and call my boss to request a week off using sick days. He sounds annoyed but approves it without asking questions. I spend the next 7 days in a fog of guilt and fear that makes everything feel distant and unreal. Every time my phone buzzes, I panic thinking it's news about Sarah, but it's just spam calls trying to sell me things and work emails I can't make myself read. The house feels like a tomb, every room echoing with Sarah's absence. I stop showering regularly, stop changing clothes, stop doing anything that requires effort beyond breathing. Food tastes like nothing, so I mostly don't eat. Sleep comes in short bursts, filled with nightmares where I'm watching Sarah on an operating table and her brain is exposed and surgeons are removing pieces while she cries and I can't move or speak or help. I wake up sweating and check my phone obsessively for updates that never come. Nathan shows up unannounced on day 5 and lets himself in with his spare key. He finds me on the couch unshaven and wearing the same clothes I've had on for 3 days. He looks at me with a mixture of concern and something that might be pity. He tells me I look like hell, but his voice is kind rather than judgmental. He brought groceries and forces me to eat a sandwich while he talks. He tells me Kayla and their therapist have been working on his own patterns, the ways he's absorbed some of Dad's behaviors without realizing it. Their therapist said something that made Nathan think of me. He explains how people who cause harm often don't see themselves as harmful because they compare themselves to worse examples. Nathan kept thinking he was nothing like Dad because he never yelled at Kayla or tried to control her emotions directly. But he had other patterns that weren't okay, like dismissing her concerns when they made him uncomfortable, making big decisions without asking her input, expecting her to manage his moods and keep him happy. Smaller things than what Dad did to Mom, but still not okay. The therapist helped him see that being better than the worst possible version doesn't mean you're actually good. You can still cause real damage even if you're not the most extreme example of an abuser. Nathan looks at me seriously and tells me I need to stop comparing myself to Dad or Sarah's father. I don't have to be the worst possible version to still cause real harm. I threatened to hit Sarah. I made her afraid to feel things in her own home. That's enough to be wrong, even if I never actually hit her. The specific ways I hurt her don't matter less just because someone else hurt someone worse. I tell Nathan about Autumn's call and what I learned about Sarah's childhood, about her father's violence and how Sarah was healing from all that trauma by being emotionally open with me. My voice breaks as I explain how I continued her father's abuse in a different form, how I took her healing and turned it into a new kind of damage. I ask Nathan how I'm supposed to live with that knowledge. How do I wake up every day knowing I destroyed someone who trusted me, who felt safe enough with me to be vulnerable, who thought I was different from the man who terrorized her childhood? Nathan is quiet for a long moment before he responds. He tells me I live with it by accepting that I can't fix it. Sarah's healing isn't about me anymore. It's not about whether I understand what I did or feel guilty about it or want to make things right. She's healing for herself now, away from me, and my job is to stay out of her way and let that happen. The hardest part of accepting responsibility is accepting that responsibility doesn't come with redemption or forgiveness or a chance to make things better. Sometimes you just have to live with what you've done and let the person you hurt move on without you. The night before Sarah's surgery, I don't sleep at all. I lie in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about every time she cried and I rolled my eyes or sighed or made some comment about her being too sensitive. Every memory is sharp and clear now that I understand what I was really doing. I was punishing her for showing emotion, making her feel ashamed of feelings she'd spent years learning to express safely. I keep seeing her face when I called her manipulative, the way her expression shut down like I'd hit her. I keep hearing my own voice telling her she was crying to control me, making her doubt her own reality. I remember the times she tried to share something that moved her, and I dismissed it as dramatic. The times she got emotional about something important to her, and I acted like it was an inconvenience. Each memory adds to the weight crushing my chest until I can barely breathe. I think about her on an operating table tomorrow, surgeons cutting into her brain to remove a tumor that's been affecting her for years. A tumor I didn't know about because I made it unsafe for her to tell me. A tumor that doubled in size while she suppressed her emotions to avoid my anger. I think about all the ways the surgery could go wrong, all the possible complications I read about during my research spiral. She could come out different, unable to feel emotions the way she used to. She could have permanent damage to her emotional regulation. She could die on the table, and the last real conversation we had was me calling her manipulative for crying. The thought makes me want to scream, but I just lie there in the dark, unable to do anything but wait for morning and hope she survives what I helped cause. Surgery day. I wake up at 5 a.m. even though I never really slept, just laid there staring at the ceiling until the sky started getting light. My phone sits on the nightstand next to me, volume turned all the way up in case anyone calls with news. I check it every few minutes even though I know Sarah's surgery isn't scheduled until 9 a.m. The house feels too quiet and too empty, and I can't stay in bed anymore, so I get up and pace through the rooms. Kitchen to living room to hallway and back again, over and over, my feet wearing a path in the carpet. I imagine Sarah in a hospital room right now getting prepped for surgery. Nurses checking her vitals, doctors going over the procedure one more time, anesthesiologists explaining what will happen when they put her under. I imagine Kiara holding her hand, being the support I should be providing, but can't, because I made myself into someone Sarah needs protection from. Around 8 a.m., I force myself to eat something because my hands are shaking and I feel dizzy, but the toast tastes like cardboard and I can barely swallow it. I check my phone again. Nothing. I pull up articles about brain surgery on my laptop, reading about the risks and complications, even though it just makes my anxiety worse. Infection, bleeding, damage to surrounding tissue, problems with anesthesia, seizures, stroke. The list goes on, and I can't stop reading even though each word feels like a knife twisting in my chest. By 9 a.m., I'm standing in the living room with my phone clutched in both hands, staring at the screen like I can will it to ring. Sarah is in surgery right now. They're cutting into her skull, exposing her brain, removing the tumor that's been affecting her for years, the tumor that doubled in size while she suppressed her emotions to avoid my anger. I imagine the surgeons working carefully around the delicate tissue, one wrong move potentially changing who she is forever. What if something goes wrong? What if she doesn't wake up? What if she wakes up different, her personality altered by the surgery, unable to feel emotions the way she used to? The thoughts spiral and I can't make them stop. I pace more, wearing that same path through the house, checking my phone every 30 seconds even though I know surgery takes hours. Around 11 a.m., Nathan calls to check on me and I nearly dropped the phone answering it so fast. He doesn't have any news, just wanted to make sure I'm okay, which I'm obviously not, but I tell him I'm fine anyway. He stays on the line with me for 20 minutes, not really saying much, just being present while I fall apart. After he hangs up, the silence is worse than before. I turn on the TV but can't focus on anything, just white noise in the background while I stare at my phone. 1 p.m. comes and goes. Still nothing. I know brain surgery takes a long time, but the waiting is killing me. Every minute feels like an hour, and I keep imagining the worst. Doctors coming out with bad news, telling Kiara that something went wrong, that Sarah didn't make it, that the last real conversation I had with her was me calling her manipulative for crying. The thought makes me physically sick, and I barely make it to the bathroom before throwing up the toast I forced down this morning. I'm sitting on the bathroom floor with my back against the tub when my phone finally buzzes at 2:17 p.m. My hands shake so badly I almost can't unlock the screen. It's a text from Kiara. Just 2 sentences that I read over and over until they blur together. Surgery complete. She's in recovery. Doctors say it went well. The relief hits me so hard I start crying, big gasping sobs that echo off the bathroom tiles. She's alive. She made it through. The surgery went well. I let myself feel that relief for maybe 30 seconds before the next text comes through. Don't respond. I'm only telling you because she made me promise to let you know she survived. The words cut through my relief like it was never there. I'm reduced to someone who gets survival updates like a distant relative, someone who needed to be told their wife didn't die but doesn't deserve any other information. I'm the person Sarah had to make her sister promise to notify because she knew I'd be worried but she doesn't want to talk to me herself. That's what I am now, someone she has to protect herself from even while recovering from brain surgery. I sit on the bathroom floor for another hour, staring at those 2 texts, before I finally pull myself together enough to stand up. I text Nathan to let him know Sarah made it through surgery, and he responds with a simple thumbs up, probably getting his information from Kayla, who's getting it from Kiara, who's actually there with Sarah. I'm at the end of a chain of people passing information along because I can't be trusted with direct contact. The rest of the day passes in a blur. I try to eat dinner but can't. I try to watch TV but can't focus. I try to sleep but just lie in bed staring at the ceiling again, thinking about Sarah in a hospital bed somewhere with a healing incision in her skull, surrounded by people who actually care about her well-being instead of their own guilt. Over the next week, I get occasional updates, always through Nathan, who gets them from Kayla, who gets them from Kiara. Sarah's physical recovery is going well. The incision is healing properly. No signs of infection or complications. But there are other issues. Emotional regulation problems, which the doctors expected after surgery on that part of her brain. Some days she cries uncontrollably over nothing. Other days she feels completely numb, unable to access any emotions at all. The doctors say it might take months for things to stabilize, that her brain needs time to adjust to the tumor being gone and to heal from the trauma of surgery. I listen to Nathan relay all this information in his careful, measured voice, and I hate that I'm hearing about my wife's recovery third hand. I hate that I did this to us. I hate that Sarah is going through emotional chaos after brain surgery, and I can't be there to support her because I'm the reason she needed to suppress her emotions in the first place. Nathan tells me Sarah is staying with Kiara and Felix during her recovery, that she's doing outpatient therapy to help with the emotional regulation issues, that she's taking it day by day. He doesn't tell me if she's asked about me or if she ever wants to see me again. I don't ask, because I'm afraid of the answer. 2 weeks after the surgery, my phone rings with an unknown number. I almost don't answer because I've been getting spam calls constantly, but something makes me pick up. It's Dr. McKinney from the facility. My heart starts racing before she even says why she's calling. Sarah has asked to see me. The words make me feel like I can't breathe, like hope and terror are fighting for space in my chest. But Dr. McKinney keeps talking and the hope dies pretty quick. She needs to prepare me for what this means. Sarah isn't looking for reconciliation. She needs to say things to me as part of her trauma processing, and I need to listen without defending myself or making it about my feelings. Can I do that? Can I sit there and hear whatever Sarah needs to tell me without trying to explain or justify or make excuses? I tell Dr. McKinney yes immediately, that I'll do whatever Sarah needs, that I just want to see her and know she's okay. Dr. McKinney schedules a supervised meeting at the facility for 3 days from now. 30 minutes, she says. She'll be in the room the entire time. If at any point Sarah becomes upset or asks me to leave, I leave immediately without argument. Do I understand? I agree to everything, my voice shaking as I write down the date and time on a piece of paper that I immediately pin to the refrigerator so I won't forget, even though there's no chance I could forget. The 3 days before the meeting are the longest of my life. I can't focus on anything else. I keep trying to figure out what to say, and then remembering that Dr. McKinney told me to let Sarah lead the conversation, that this is about what she needs to say to me, not what I need to say to her. I go through my closet and realize all my clothes hang off me because I've lost so much weight from barely eating. I buy new pants and a shirt that actually fit, wanting to look like I'm taking care of myself, even though I'm barely keeping it together. I get a haircut and shave carefully the morning of the meeting, my hands shaking so badly I nick myself twice with the razor. I leave the house an hour early because I can't stand waiting anymore, and end up sitting in the facility parking lot for 40 minutes, watching other people come and go, wondering if any of them are here for reasons as horrible as mine. When I finally walk into the facility at exactly the scheduled time, the same security guard who told me to leave my car weeks ago is at the desk. He checks my ID without any sign of recognition and escorts me down a hallway to a small meeting room. The walls are painted a soft blue, and there are tissues on the table and a clock on the wall that I immediately start watching because I need something to focus on besides my racing heart. Dr. McKinney is already there, sitting in one of the chairs. She stands when I come in and shakes my hand, her grip firm and professional. She gives me a quick rundown of the rules in a low voice. Let Sarah lead the conversation. Answer questions honestly but briefly. No justifications or excuses for my behavior. If I feel defensive, take a breath and remember this isn't about me. If Sarah asks me to leave at any point, I leave immediately. I nod to show I understand, even though I'm not sure I can actually follow through on staying calm if Sarah tells me she never wants to see me again. The door opens and Sarah walks in. I barely recognize her. She's lost weight too, probably more than me, and her face looks thinner and paler than I remember. There's a healing scar on the side of her head, partially hidden by her hair but visible if you know to look for it. But the biggest change is in her eyes. They're clear and direct in a way they haven't been in months, maybe longer. She looks at me without flinching, which should make me feel better but somehow makes me feel worse because it means she's not afraid of me anymore. She's just done with me. There's no warmth in her expression, no anger either, just a kind of flat calm that's more frightening than any emotion would be. She sits down in the chair across from me without saying hello and takes a deep breath like she's preparing herself for something difficult. She tells me she needs to say some things and she needs me to just listen. Dr. McKinney says this is part of her healing, so she's doing it for herself, not for me. Her voice is steady but completely flat, like she's reading from a script she's practiced. I nod and clasp my hands together in my lap to keep them from shaking, pressing my palms together so hard it hurts. I don't trust myself to speak, so I just wait for her to continue, watching her face for any sign of the woman I married, the one who used to cry at commercials and laugh at her own jokes and light up when she told stories. Sarah tells me the tumor has been removed successfully. The surgery went well and the doctors are happy with her physical recovery. But the emotional damage I caused is still there. The doctors can fix her brain chemistry, but they can't fix what I made her believe about herself. I made her think her natural emotions were weapons she was using against me. I made her afraid to be human in her own home. Every word lands like a punch and I want to interrupt, to apologize, to explain, but I remember Dr. McKinney's instructions and I keep my mouth shut. This is what Sarah needs to say. The least I can do is listen. Sarah keeps talking, and I force myself to stay quiet, even though every word makes me want to interrupt and explain. She describes waking up every morning during those 3 months and running through a mental checklist before leaving the bedroom. Check if I seem upset. Plan what to say that won't trigger emotions. Rehearse neutral facial expressions. She stopped watching her favorite cooking shows because the hosts got excited about food, and it made her want to feel excited too. She avoided calling her mom because hearing her voice made her chest tight with the urge to cry. She threw away books halfway through reading them because the characters were going through things that made her feel too much. Every single day was about making herself smaller and quieter and less human. She tells me she would sit in her car after work for 20 minutes just breathing and letting herself feel things before coming home and shutting it all down again. The parking lot became her only safe place to be herself. Sarah shifts in her chair, and her voice gets quieter but more intense. She says when the doctor showed her the brain scan and explained about the tumor pressing on her emotional center. Her first reaction wasn't fear about surgery or cancer or dying. Her first thought was wondering if I would believe her or if I would accuse her of making it up for sympathy. She sat in that doctor's office learning she needed brain surgery and spent the whole appointment worrying about how to tell me without seeming manipulative. She actually practiced different ways to say it that wouldn't make me angry. She considered not telling me at all and just scheduling the surgery for a day I'd be at work. That's when she understood how bad things had gotten, when facing a tumor alone felt safer than facing it with her husband. Sarah looks directly at me, and I can see she's not crying, but her eyes are bright and clear in a way that's almost worse. She says she needs me to really hear this next part. She's not telling me any of this to hurt me or make me feel worse than I already do. She's telling me because I need to understand the full truth of what I did. I didn't just make her sad sometimes or hurt her feelings during arguments. I made her afraid of her own emotions. I made her question whether her feelings were real or manufactured. I made her doubt her basic perception of reality. She says I turned her into her mother during the years with her father, a woman who monitored every facial expression and tone of voice to avoid triggering violence, a woman who became a ghost in her own life to survive. I open my mouth to say something, but Sarah holds up her hand and I close it again. She says she doesn't want my apology right now. Dr. McKinney gave her copies of the letters I tried to send, and she read all 7 of them. Every single one was about my guilt and my realization and my growth and my understanding. Every letter was still making it about me. She needs me to know that my growth doesn't fix what I broke. Me becoming a better person doesn't undo the damage I caused. She might carry the fear of being manipulative for the rest of her life because of what I made her believe about herself. Even if she heals completely and learns to trust her emotions again, there will always be a part of her that remembers the 3 months she spent suffocating her own humanity because her husband told her being human was manipulation. Sarah tells me she's been approved for outpatient treatment and will be staying with Kiara and Felix during her recovery. She needs months of therapy to rebuild her sense of self. She needs to relearn how to trust her own feelings without second-guessing whether they're real or performative. She might never be able to cry freely again without that voice in her head asking if she's being manipulative. That's something she'll carry forever because of me. The tumor is gone, but the psychological damage I caused is still there and might always be there. The doctors can fix brain chemistry, but they can't fix learned fear and self-doubt. Sarah's voice gets even quieter, and I have to lean forward to hear her. She says she doesn't know if she'll ever want to see me again after today. She might decide to divorce me. She might decide eventually that she wants to try therapy together. She honestly has no idea what she'll want in 6 months or a year. But whatever she decides, it will be based purely on what she needs for her own healing. Not on managing my guilt. Not on giving me a chance to prove I've changed. Not on whether I seem sorry enough or have done enough work on myself. Her decision will be about her and only her. I need to accept that my growth and my changes and my understanding might not be enough. They might not matter at all to her choice. Sarah stands up and I realize the meeting is over. She looks down at me still sitting in the chair and says she hopes I get help. She hopes I figure out why I became like my father and break that pattern. But she hopes I do it for myself and for any future relationships I might have. Not because I think it will bring her back. She's not a prize I can win back by becoming better. She's a person who deserves to heal without the weight of my expectations. She walks to the door and opens it without looking back at me. The door closes behind her with a soft click that sounds louder than it should. Dr. McKinney stays in her chair and lets me sit in silence. I can hear the clock on the wall ticking, and voices in the hallway outside, and my own breathing that sounds too loud. After what feels like forever but is probably only a few minutes, Dr. McKinney asks how I'm feeling. I tell her I feel like someone reached inside me and pulled out everything I thought I knew about myself. Like I'm hollow. Like the person I believed I was never existed, and I'm just now seeing the real version. Dr. McKinney nods and says, "That's actually progress. I'm finally seeing the truth instead of the story I told myself." Dr. McKinney pulls out a business card and hands it to me. She says it's for a therapist named Dr. Christensen who works with people who've been abusive. People who want to understand their patterns and change them. She emphasizes that Sarah's healing is completely separate from mine now. I need to do my own work without any expectation that it will repair my marriage. The work is about becoming someone who doesn't hurt people, not about winning Sarah back or earning forgiveness or proving I've changed enough, just about becoming different at a basic level. She stands up and tells me I can sit here as long as I need before leaving. She has to go check on Sarah. The door closes and I'm alone in the small room. I call Dr. Christensen's office from my car and schedule an appointment for the following week. The receptionist asks what I'm seeking treatment for, and I don't know how to answer. Finally, I just say I've been abusive to my wife and need help understanding why. There's a pause, and then she says, "Dr. Christensen has an opening in 6 days." I take it. I drive home and the house is exactly as empty as it was before, but somehow it feels different now. Like Sarah's absence is more permanent, more final. The week drags by in a blur of work and sleepless nights, and checking my phone for messages that don't come. When I finally sit down in Dr. Christensen's office, he's an older man with gray hair and glasses who looks at me with an expression I can't read. Not judgmental, but not sympathetic either. Just neutral and assessing. He asks me to tell him why I'm here, and I give him the whole story. Everything from the beginning. The crying that embarrassed me. Calling her manipulative. The threat. The 3 months of her becoming a ghost. The tumor. Her leaving. The meeting where she told me everything. He listens without interrupting and takes notes occasionally. When I finish, he sets down his pen and looks at me directly. He says guilt is useless if it doesn't lead to change. Right now, I'm drowning in guilt, but I haven't actually done the work of understanding why I behave that way. I haven't figured out how to be different. Feeling bad isn't the same as changing. We have a lot of work to do. The first therapy session with Dr. Christensen feels like getting my chest cracked open without anesthesia. He makes me walk through every interaction with Sarah that I can remember, not letting me gloss over anything or hide behind vague descriptions. When I try to say I was just frustrated, he stops me and makes me describe exactly what I said, exactly how I said it, exactly what Sarah's face looked like when the words hit her. We spend an hour just on the night I called her manipulative, breaking down every word choice, every tone shift, every moment I could have stopped and didn't. He asks why I chose the word manipulative instead of sensitive or emotional, and I realize I picked the word that would hurt most, that would make her doubt herself completely. The sessions happen twice a week, and each one leaves me feeling scraped raw, like he's removing layers of denial I didn't know I'd built up. In the third week, he brings up my father and I try to deflect, saying I already know I became like him. Dr. Christensen shakes his head and tells me knowing isn't the same as understanding why. We dig into my childhood, the way Dad controlled every emotional expression in our house, how I learned that feelings were dangerous things that needed to be managed and contained. I remember being 7 and crying over a dead pet, and Dad telling me men don't cry over animals, that I was being dramatic like my mother. I remember Mom's face going blank, the way she stopped comforting me and just walked away. Dr. Christensen asks what I learned in that moment, and I realize I learned that emotions made you a target, that showing feeling meant losing respect, that the person who stayed calm had the power. The pattern is so clear now it makes me sick. During one session, I break down completely, sobbing in a way I haven't since I was a kid. Dr. Christensen doesn't comfort me or tell me it's okay. He just sits there and lets me feel it, lets me sit with the unbearable weight of what I've done. When I finally stop, he says, "This is what Sarah felt every day living with me, sitting with feelings she couldn't escape while I punished her for having them." 3 months after Sarah left, I'm sitting in my mostly empty house signing separation papers that her lawyer sent over. She's filed for legal separation, not divorce yet, but the message is clear. The papers include a request that I not attempt any contact except through legal channels. I sign everything and mail it back the same day. Nathan stops by later that week and tells me Sarah is doing well, that she's living with Kiara and Felix and focusing on her recovery. He says she's crying freely again, that she laughed at a movie last weekend, that she's reconnecting with her emotions in healthy ways. I ask if she ever asks about me, and Nathan hesitates before saying she's focused on herself right now, which is answer enough. I'm genuinely glad she's healing even though it's happening without me, even though I'll probably never see the result of that healing. My life is still in pieces. I lost my job 2 weeks ago after my performance kept declining, and I snapped at a client. I'm living off savings and searching for work. But every interview goes badly because I can't focus, can't present the confident version of myself that employers want to see. Friends have stopped calling. My brother maintains contact, but it's careful, boundaried, nothing like it used to be. I spend most days alone, going to therapy twice a week and trying to understand how I became someone capable of destroying another person so completely. Dr. Christensen keeps pushing me to sit with guilt without letting it consume me, to understand that growth doesn't erase harm, that becoming better won't fix what I broke. Some damage can't be undone. Some trust can't be rebuilt. Some people don't get the redemption arc they want where the person they hurt forgives them and everything works out. I'm learning to accept that this might be my reality, that I might be the villain in Sarah's story forever, that understanding what I did too late doesn't change that I did it. The work of becoming better continues anyway, not because it will bring Sarah back or earn me forgiveness, but because it's the only path forward that means anything. I can't undo threatening her, can't erase the 3 months I made her suppress every feeling, can't take back the tumor doubling in size because of stress I caused, but I can make sure I never do this to anyone else. I can break the pattern my father started and I continued. That's not redemption. It's just the bare minimum of being human.